As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. Of course, people keep telling me crime doesn't pay, don't take shortcuts, work hard, be an upstanding citizen. And that's fine for some, but you know what? I want to be the guy that gets his hands dirty. Sometimes, crime is absolutely worth it. Sometimes, it can be downright fun. Criminal activities in sandbox games go hand in hand, but open world games have one heck of a reputation. Supposed to be the kingpin, always incredibly difficult to take down, aka complete, I figured I'd go with the godfather of the genre. A game that set the standard for sandbox games as we know it. A game filled with a dark sense of humor that sets it apart. A game with so much to do in it that eventually it becomes a chore to play. It's time to complete Grand Theft Auto 3. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Completionist. We don't just beat the games, we complete them. And today, we're gonna get our hands dirty with little mayhem when I complete the godfather of modern sandbox games, Grand Theft Auto 3. Capiche? The Grand Theft Auto series is one of the most high-profile, top-selling video game franchises ever made, and the third main entry is an absolute giant. From the storytelling to the open world, GTA 3 defined sandbox games and has stood the test of time as one of the most influential games ever made. Now, the team behind GTA 3 went all out to make something that had never been seen before. DMA Design, under the umbrella of Rockstar North, wasn't content with putting out a half-baked game. Creative directors Sam and Dan Houser wanted to make a game that pushed the limits of what people expected, and I gotta say, it did a pretty bang-up job. The result is an absolutely massive game which took full advantage of the PS2's 32 megabytes of RAM. That's a lot of pixels, baby. Inspired by crime dramas like Goodfellas and The Godfather, the Housers crafted a meticulously detailed fictional world overrun with cartels, yakuza, and more Scorsese references than a first-year film student. We're looking at a third-person action game in a city overrun with crime, with silent protagonist Claude, who's never actually called by name by anyone in the game, completing different missions for various gang bosses. At the start, the player character is out for revenge on the woman who betrayed him during a robbery gone wrong, and figures getting on the Leone crime family's good side is a great way to get even. As the plot moves along, the player changes sides, gets betrayed, and steals more cars than Mark Wahlberg in The Italian Job. You're free to do whatever you want in between missions, but you can't be afraid to gun down anyone who gets in your way, from cops to snitches to spank-addicted kamikaze freaks. Think Zelda by way of The Sopranos, and you've got a pretty good idea of the style Rockstar was going for here. Liberty City is a huge metropolis inspired by Chicago, Detroit, and New York City. The developers wanted players to feel like Liberty City was a fully realized place, complete with radio stations, different models of cars, and NPCs that react to situations differently. All this flavor adds up to something amazing, a mafioso meatball that made me feel like a wise guy. Grand Theft Auto 3 was a smash hit, and it's still a high watermark for the series. They even re-released it for the PS4, the version I played today. Nice to see classics brought out to shine once again. Even by today's standards, this game is a mammoth. Hilariously, you can even play this game on mobile now, but I'm more of a PlayStation guy, which means to fully complete this game, I had to make and execute a flawless plan.
Repeat. Any questions?
Yeah, I got a question. Was Earbuds over here even listening? We got a lot of production to do.
Gerard?
First, I get all the hidden packages on Portland, then get the paramedic missions out of the way. I then knock out the fire truck, vigilante, and taxi missions immediately after that. I beeline to the telephone and rampage missions. In order to do that, I have to knock out the bare minimum of the story missions. After those are knocked out, I'll pinch the Banshee from the exotic car shop in the northeast of Portland and use it to get each and every unique jump. After a quick off-road mission and some RC carnage, it's back to the story missions until we unlock the second island. Wash, rinse, repeat. Any questions?
Oh, ain't y'all cute?
That's my completionist.
If completing Grand Theft Auto 3 sounds convoluted, that's because it is. This game threw me for a loop. Certain side missions become way more difficult depending on how many story missions you've completed. This is because the more parts of the island you've unlocked, the more aggressive other gangs become towards you. And I'm barely scratching the surface here. There are in-game milestones, 29 added trophies, and missions on top of missions that I'll have to knock out. It's a lot to wrap my mind around. Becoming a criminal in Grand Theft Auto 3 is an easy road to go down, but climbing the ladder to be the top crime boss in Liberty City is a whole other endeavor. When people think of open world games, there's a reason that Grand Theft Auto is one of the first examples to pop up into their heads. GTA 3 is the OG sandbox, where players are free to do whatever they please. This game set the standard for sandbox games that came after, with outstanding production values and gameplay that became the ultimate blueprint for this game type. Back in the day, it was unusual for a studio to go out of its way to get so much big name talent for a video game. But for GTA 3, it feels like the developers got half the cast of The Sopranos to show up and voice tough guys and mob bosses. And honestly, it's a stroke of casting genius. The voice work isn't especially nuanced, but I find it endearingly over the top. The player character is a silent protagonist, but that might have been so they could budget in heavy hitters like Frank Vincent, Joe Pantoliano, and Michael Madsen. The voice actors across the board elevate the material, lending more sizzle to a script that admittedly leans into mafia cliches a little too hard. The opening cutscene is a montage that instantly put me in the headspace of being in a classic crime drama. GTA 3 was the first 3D game in the series, and one of the first games of its type to use the language of film all throughout the game, and it's extremely effective. There's something about the visuals in this game that I kind of love. Yeah, the models are blocky and a bit outdated, but I appreciate the characters. They had strong personalities, and I'd love to hate all the backstabbing psychos I interacted with. It's the same thing with Liberty City itself. By the end of my time with GTA 3, I knew each different island in this game almost as well as the streets of my own hometown. I knew exactly where to get the best cars, where to lose the cops, and which safe house was around the next corner. The city may not be very visually appealing, it's pretty gray and monochrome in fact, but by the end, it was my city. Another extremely innovative addition was the improvements to the wanted system, which shows how alert the police are to your presence and criminal activities. In one corner of the screen, there are stars, and unlike in grade school, you want as few of those as possible at all times. More stars, more problems. Even if you try and play the game with minimal collateral damage, many missions raise stars at the start. And if your wanted rating gets too high, the cops are going to shoot to kill and eventually start rolling up in tanks. Have the Liberty City Police never heard of overcompensating? But of course, this wouldn't be Grand Theft Auto without the cars. They're all over Liberty City, and they're ripe for plucking from unexpected NPCs. Stealing cars in this game is extremely empowering because you can do it at any time, anywhere, from anybody. I loved being able to just carjack the nicest car on the road to escape pursuit, and nothing is as priceless as taking a cop's car after they just stepped out to take a shot at me. Hijacking a car is so important in Grand Theft Auto 3 that it had a button dedicated to it. I mean, it's the title of the game for Christ's sake, so I guess it's mildly important. The developers put a lot of details in the makes and models of the cars, not to mention weights, physics, and speed. Even the car crash sounds are lovingly depicted. My favorite detail? Being able to change the radio stations while driving. The variety of stuff to listen to in GTA 3 is amazing, and it was hours before I heard any repeats. My favorite thing to do was to go to Double Clef FM and cause a bunch of mayhem while soothing classical music played. Kind of made me feel like a higher class kind of criminal. I've said it many times. This game has a rap sheet longer than my arm. Its reputation has a reputation. I think that GTA 3 sticks in the cultural consciousness not just for the gameplay and presentation, but because of the attitude of nihilism and dark humor that has defined the series ever since. Grand Theft Auto has always courted a little bit of controversy, even back when it was a 2D top-down crime spree that gave the player higher scores for deadlier killing sprees. For me, my relationship to that controversy over GTA 3 was a little different. Of course, edgelords all over the world wanted to play this game right when it came out. It was rated M for mature, and therefore every 13-year-old kid around the block needed to have it. GTA 3 had a whiff of scandal to it, even for Bambino Gerard. I really wanted to experience the controversy firsthand, but when I finally played it a year or so after it released, I was like, yep, this is a video game, all right. While it had attitude, it wasn't nearly as earth-shattering as I was led to believe. Yeah, there's violence, but I'd say it leans more towards slapstick than ultra-gritty realism. And I certainly don't think this game contributed to the decline of civilization as we know it. There's a level of abstraction and a filter of comedy that keeps things relatively light. I love the modern trend of games becoming more thoughtful and interesting, but this game is a product of its time, and I think it's good that nothing was changed in this re-release. The attitude can sometimes feel a little dated, but hey, that's just the way it goes. The phone missions are a great example of GTA 3's dark humor. Each one is unique, but the best is a set of missions where it's heavily implied that the player character is delivering NPCs to a location where they become dog food. Instead of Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes, the message is Mrs. Chonks rests in a dog food can. Little funny details make GTA 3 stand out as a true classic. I loved finding out the different criminal groups had favorite radio stations. The Chatterbox talk show always made me laugh with its absurdity and weirdly prophetic ads. I loved the satirical billboards posted all over town. I'll never forget nearly running an NPC off the road and him screaming, "Are you a Beavers fan?" at me as he dodged out of the way. Even the way the NPCs react to you stealing their cars is funny. Rather than cower in fear, they say stuff like, "I gotta get my nails done. You're gonna pay for that?" Or "Yeah, sure, just go ahead and take it." Interactions like these keep the game fresh and reinforce that this world is your playground. Everyone who played a sandbox game knows that little anecdotes like these are what makes GTA 3 special. We all experience the main plot and side quests more or less in the same way, but on the way, there's a close call, a hilarious NPC interaction, a robbery gone awry because the fender of my car slipped on a piece of geometry and completely flipped over and exploded. But to complete this game, I had to do a lot more than just mess around in this systemic world. I loved all the details, but knew that at some point, if I really wanted to complete it, I'd have to look at the big picture and get to work. You know how in every crime movie there's a turning point where suddenly things go off the rails? Even with the best laid plans, somebody gets had. You think you're a made man and then the tables are turned and you wind up shot in the head and wrapped up in a tarp. I thought I had GTA 3 all figured out, but some side missions took this game from being a time-consuming but fun crime caper to being a straight-up nightmare. I'm talking dump the cocaine down the toilet levels of stress and anxiety. What, you think my stress is amusing to you? Do I make you laugh? No, I'm serious. There's a distinct point in this game where it stops being fun and starts feeling like bashing my head into a wall. One good thing I can say is that there aren't difficulty levels in this game, so I was at least able to do everything in one go. I appreciated that the difficulty scaled to how far I progressed in the story, and I think it's a great example of how to make a game feel more challenging without just switching from easy to hard. This difficulty curve is the worst on the first island, Portland. The Northeast Mafia Zone, completely unvisitable. Every enemy has a freaking shotgun that blows up cars in one shot. Even Michael Bay's wildest dreams couldn't even come up with this. On paper, it sounded so simple. Completing the vigilante, paramedic, off-road, and RC missions didn't seem to be that difficult. But once I got going, I realized that this game was not screwing around. Some of these missions had me gritting my teeth and powering through, and in one case using a well-known exploit to finally get it done. If you steal an ambulance, you can start a series of side missions that require you to rescue patients by speeding to the hospitals as fast as you can. Ironic that in this incredibly violent game, there's a whole series of tasks revolving around saving lives. One rage-inducing thing in these missions is that the AI will behave incredibly random, changing lanes unexpectedly and making it super hard to get to the hospitals on time. You know how in real life an ambulance can just use a siren to clear the goddamn road? Don't even think of trying that in GTA 3. It's like the siren makes other cars on the road go slower. It's worth saying that on their own, any set of side missions isn't too terrible. It's the cumulative effect that wore me down. Because the side missions get harder the further along in the plot you are, I had to do as much as I could as soon as I could. I basically had to say goodbye to the story missions for hours at a time. Another soul-crushing experience was any sniper rampage missions. Rockstar Games are infamous for having difficult and weird controls, and that infamy is on full display here while trying to line up headshots. Essentially, if the player character isn't at the exact right elevation, you can't even see the target to assassinate. There were a few targets that I had to take out at point blank range at ground level because there was no other way to get it done. I'm just gonna come out here and make a blanket statement. Any missions in this game that requires any kind of precision feels kind of broken. The shooting doesn't even feel good, the driving takes a lot of getting used to, and the camera is laughably bad. Even the minimap in the game is basically useless, though it does have a cool feature where it will zoom in and out depending on how fast you're driving. This can be a blessing and a curse because it forces you to drive quickly and recklessly to figure out where you're going or how far away from a waypoint you are. I printed out a hard copy of the map and wrote all over it so I could navigate it better. It was instrumental to help me find my hideout faster, figure out better routes, see which roads connected to which, and keep track of which islands had what stuff to do on them. The vigilante missions are some of the most annoying missions in GTA 3. For these side quests, the players must steal a police vehicle and then kill a criminal in a specified time limit. Don't get me wrong, I got them done, big bang boom, but I definitely made use of a famous exploit. If you're chasing down a criminal in a car and you pause the game, when you unpause, they'll step out of the car, making them easy pickings. The rampages have a super annoying design flaw. At certain locations throughout the map, you start a rampage, which basically means destroying a certain number of vehicles or killing a specific gang in a set amount of time. They're hard, especially the later rampages, where the AI will more realistically fight against you and the cops will try and take you out as well. Unfortunately, when I died during a rampage, I couldn't just start it over. I had to trek to a totally different spawn point, then back to spot number 1 if I failed that one. Sure, the easy solution is don't fail, but I kept doubting which of the two locations were more feasible, making everything more tedious and frustrating. The off-road missions were another seemingly easy situation that caused me unbelievable suffering. There aren't many of these missions triggered when you get into a specific vehicle at a specific area, but they're just so damn difficult to pull off perfectly, especially with this game's casual relationship to physics. I had to drive all over a freaking mountain, hitting checkpoints quickly without falling off and dying and falling into the ocean and spawning on a completely different island. And did I mention there's no fast travel? These hurdles definitely made the game a lot harder to clear. But you know what? That's just the life. I wanted to be top dog, so I took care of it. This game is a parabola of frustration. It starts off okay, gets crazy difficult, and eases back down once you claim some of the completion bonuses. And the view from the top is so worth it. Yeah, it took a long freaking time to get there, but the rewards for doing everything in this game are amazing. The completion rewards are so good that it reminded me every once in a while that completing a game can be fun, even if I had to get completely roughed up in the process. Every time I completed a string of missions, I was rewarded with more amazing stuff added to my safe house. Normally, the safe houses are a pretty good place to lay low, but after enough side missions are done, they become downright essential. I could lower my wanted rating and stock up on explosives and ammo, heal, grab body armor, basically doubling my health, and it's all free. Even though I was swimming in cash by the end of the game, I didn't want to trek to each individual shop to buy stuff. It's not how gangsters operate. Liberty City really became a playground after earning enough rewards. I could go out into the world, cause some mayhem to try and hit some benchmarks, then scoop back to the safe house to plan my next moves. GTA 3 felt like it was giving me things all throughout the game, but especially so the more of these crazy side missions I did. However, the benchmarks don't really earn you anything at all and felt more like padding than anything else. One of them is blow up 2,000 cars, which you would think would happen naturally after playing a game for as long as I did. But even after I had poured 68 hours into this game, I had only blown up around 700 cars. I thought I could blow up the remaining cars with the bazooka, but it turned out to be way more efficient to take charge of an unstoppable tank that made cars explode on contact. This was a nice, easy, carnage-ridden ending to GTA 3 where I finally became a kingpin. When I completed Grand Theft Auto 3, there were 137 hospital visits, aka deaths. So glad they were able to treat me in the hospital and not cart me off to jail. 29 trophies earned, including 1 for 100% in-game completion. 3,647 people wasted. Some because they got in my way, some because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Over $8 million earned just through normal gameplay. 20 seconds of flight in the dodo plane, which I am so glad was not anything important for completion. 70 hours of total playtime, and one completionist who learned that crime literally does pay, at least in the world of Grand Theft Auto 3. Look at this, just crashing a car gives me cash money. Does that work in real life? I think not. First, I got the money. Then, I got the power. Then, I got the completion bonuses. Grand Theft Auto 3 is so incredibly huge with so much to do, I was never really bored going through the whole thing. This game is a piece of history and the first example of how to do a genre right. However, getting every single thing done, not really worth it in my opinion. So, with that in mind guys, I give this game my completionist rating of finish it.
Finish it!
That's all the time we have today, guys, so please, as always, let me know what you thought about today's episode somewhere on the internet. If you like the show, hit that like button, leave a comment down below of why you think my dialect sucks, and if you do, I'll give you the big finger, capiche? Awesome. Hey, if you like what you see here, you can check us out on Patreon. We got some cool stuff over there, too. I'll see you next week. I've been Gerard. Take it easy, snitches. Snitches get stitches, and that's what you be, so don't snitch, bitches.